to God. We thank the Lord for another day, another opportunity to share the words of grace and truth. The Bible declares unto us that this is the day that the Lord hath made. We shall rejoice and be glad therein. And we thank the Lord for this day, this new day that He's given us, a day of life. And I thank Him for giving us a mind to want to learn more about what He said in His Word. Today we're going to discuss a study that's entitled Advocates for Truth. Being a God that is so good, He's given us this opportunity at life. We must understand then there is a role that we do play, a role that we play as being His children. In a world filled with lies today, where people find it very easy and convenient to lie or to be a hypocrite, the Lord is looking for a few good children to be advocates of truth, spiritual children who promote truth and honor Him. Are you one of those children? I don't want you to answer it out loud, but I want you to think about it. Are you one of those children, one of those advocates? Because it's important that this question is answered, because in answering this question, we find out something about ourselves, and we find out something about how we should approach life, no matter what's happening in the world. The Bible declares unto us that in the world you shall have tribulations, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. And because the Lord has overcome the world, He is our earthly example, that we have that promise of God as well, that we shall also too overcome the world. But in order to overcome the world, we must be the same as our earthly example, Jesus Christ, was. He was truly an advocate for truth. Our Bible spelling words are three. The first word is advocate. An advocate is defined by Webster as meaning one who supports or promotes the interests of a cause or group. Another word, which is the second definition for this word advocate, is apostle, a person who argues for or supports an idea or a plan. In the courtroom, who would you consider to be the advocate for someone who is being accused of something? An attorney. That's an example of an advocate. So it's a champion. Another definition for advocate is true believer. One term that might not often be associated with the word advocate, but it also means advocate, and that's the word booster. You hear that term associated with sports most of the time, but a booster is considered an advocate. Our second Bible spelling word is worshiper. Worshiper means to regard with respect, honor, or devotion. The second definition for worshiper is adore, and a third is glorify. And last but not least, our third Bible spelling word is hypocrite. Hypocrite is defined by Webster as a person who puts on a false appearance of virtue or religion. A second definition for hypocrite is a person who acts in a way that goes against what she claims to believe or feel. When you understand these definitions, what you learn, they inform you then about what you observe in your neighborhood, your community, in your society. They begin to inform you about the behavior that you have seen in your household, in your neighborhood, in your city or municipality, in your county, in your region, in your state, in your country, in the world. You begin to be informed about the way that people behave. You begin to be informed about what you see and what you've heard. You even begin to be informed about yourself. Because whether we want to be or not, each and every day we embody advocacy of something. And if we're not careful, through what we worship, become a hypocrite. The Lord is not just looking for people to just support His ideas or His plans, but most important, looking for people who support or argue for truth and transparency. There are many who think that just because they support what says that is enough. But the Lord is looking for people who really support truth and transparency, who are willing to stand or argue for truth and transparency. That's who those are the children that the Lord is looking for. And because we live in a world of hypocrisy, of hypocrites, of lies, because we live in such a world where it's so pervasive and it's so much encouraged to not tell the truth or to be a hypocrite, it makes it more challenging for people to become who the Lord wants them to be without help. That's why the Lord, through his grace and mercy, provided the Holy Spirit. That's why Jesus told Nicodemus that he has to become born again, because it's not humanly possible for a person to make this change. Because what has to happen, if you think about somebody being immersed in something, being submerged in something all the time, it's going to take a little while to get that something off of you. And so what you have to recognize is that becoming born again is about transforming or getting what's off of us that's not right. And that takes some time, depending on how interested we are. But recognize those who have the best fighting chance are those who've not been so submerged in that which is wrong, who have not been so submerged in hypocrisy. So they have the fighting chance to be able to be these children of choice, to be these children that the Lord is seeking, this chosen generation of worshipers, this chosen generation of people who would be advocates of truth and transparency. For truth is the Lord's will and the Lord's way. Our Bible memory verse comes out of the book of St. John, the 4th chapter, starts at the 22nd verse. And it reads, "Ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." Our Bible verse comes out of the book of St. John, the 4th chapter, verse 22 through 24. And here, the words declaring unto us are the words of Jesus Christ. And Jesus is speaking to the Jews who are around him, to the crowd that's around him. And he's saying that the time is going to come when true believers will be trusted and preferred over traditional worshipers or believers. So what is he trying to say? He's alluding to the fact that there was a way that the Jewish people saw their relationship with God, and that is that God's salvation was through the Jews. And that was the perspective that they lived by. But what Jesus is saying, I know that's the perspective that you live by, but the time is going to come when true worshipers will be worshiping the Lord. The new champions will get non-believers' attention faster than the traditional believers. There's going to be traditional ways that people were trying to encourage people to come to God. But he's saying time is going to come where traditional ways of encouraging people to trust God are not going to be as effective. But the time is going to come where true believers will be trusted and preferred over traditional worshipers, over traditional believers, over the way that they thought people had to get to God, had to come to know God. That these new champions, they're going to be able to get people who don't believe attention faster. They're going to be able to get than those traditional believers, than the traditional way. The Bible said the Lord is seeking these advocates of truth. The Lord is seeking people to worship him in this manner. People who bring truth to light, people who bring truth to power. People who bring truth to light, people who bring truth to power. He's saying there's going to come a time where people being advocates of truth and transparency is going to override the traditional way of people coming to know God. That time is upon us. That time is upon us because people are appreciating more the opportunity to collaborate, to touch, and have conversation with people, not just in the place of worship, but outside of the place of worship. And they value truth being shared with them in transparency. They value that connection with the individual more than they value, in many regards, the connection with the building. In fact, many people are choosing not to go to the building. That is considered the place, the traditional place for being able to connect with God. And yes, it is still the place to connect with God. But what people, because of truth, people are learning that there is an advocates being available, people who are advocates of truth and transparency, because they are advocates of truth and transparency in their life and wherever they may go. That truth and transparency is being preferred over the traditional methods for many. This is what Jesus is talking about. Today we're going to learn the importance of this advocacy for truth, being a champion for the Lord. Being a champion for the Lord means being a champion for the Lord where you are, not where the building is. Make sure everybody understands this. Being a champion or an advocate for truth is about being an advocate for truth wherever you go, and not just in the location where the place that people gather is. It's about people seeing you as the salt that Jesus spoke about, seeing you as the light that Jesus spoke about, the candle that is set on the hill that cannot be hid. And even in that analogy, Jesus was talking about truth in the neighborhood. A light that is set on a hill cannot be hid. He's talking about out in the open. So when someone out in the open is an advocate of truth and transparency, that truth and transparency cannot be hid. If I fast forward to today's time, the thing that makes truth and transparency more evident is the fact that we have an advancement in technology. An advancement in technology makes truth and transparency more evident, a lot faster than humans desire. Truth and transparency was being made evident during Jesus' day a lot faster than the chief priest desired. So because of his frustration, the chief priest chose to have Jesus executed. Just like many hypocrites, when they are being threatened, their hypocritical way is being threatened, they choose to try to destroy the source in order to continue their lie, in order to continue the hypocritical way of thinking. They're being exposed. So what we must recognize and understand is this transparency, truth and transparency is what God is interested in. It's that light. It's those advocates. And so you must ask yourself the question, are you an advocate of truth?
Oh, praise be to God, from whom all blessings flow. It is our prayer at Clay Family Ministries that your life has been increased with the increase of God through this study. We appreciate and are thankful for your fellowship during this life skills study segment.